Micah, you're aware of Craigslist, right?
Yeah, that's actually how I found my studio.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So, you've heard of like people like the Craigslist killer, right?
No, but that doesn't surprise me.
Well, there was a guy who put out ads for something and always like requested a meetup to get the item, and would always be in like a really secluded place, like, and people were foolish enough to actually follow through with it. They went out there and this guy killed them, and it was a thing you heard about online, and when you read into it, you saw the depths of it and everything, and it was actually pretty scary. The deep web and the dark web. Have you ever been there? Have you ever gone on a Tor browser and seen what's down there?
I have not. I know a little bit about it, but no, I've never ventured into the deep.
Okay, well, here's the comparison that I can make for the internet that the everyday internet that you have access to.
Yeah, it's like the little tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, versus the deep web is that massive amount that's underwater.
Oh yeah.
So for me, I was given an experience on the dark web. A friend of mine, who I will not name, we were roommates. Actually, I will name him, Clint, my buddy Clint. We actually were really good friends for a long time. We still talk every now and again, but he had a meetup that he had to go to with some friends that he had at the college. One of the people in this college dorm had a Tor browser. A Tor browser allows you to access the deep web and the dark web, anonymously to a certain degree. Anyway, what happened when I went in there to that room? Clint went off and he started talking with his friends and everything, and me, I was stuck there, sitting there in the in the commons area in between, like the little things, and all of a sudden this one guy, he's just like, "Hey man, you ever been to the deep web?" Along those lines, and I'm like, what's the deep web? He's like, well, the internet that you see and you access every day, that's only the tip of the iceberg, and the rest of it's just crazy amounts of stuff on here you want to see. And we went to a website called, we actually went to a website that was kind of like Silk Road, where you could deal in drugs and everything, and it was I don't think it was. I think it was before cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency became the norm on there, and instead it was cash only in person deals.
Right.
And well, that's what happened. That's what happened and occurred on there. And we click around. There's a few other websites. There's a few like dingy adult sites that he went to and showed. He's like, hey man, look here, it's all free. And I'm like, Jesus, dude. And then we go to another one, and I actually saw it on another top 10 list that that me and another friend looked at sometime. My friend Chad. It recalled the memory of this. I repressed it. It was a website called Candy Palace. For those of you who are curious of what that is, allow me to elaborate. Children. Between the ages of 5 and 11. I immediately just walked away from that guy and that screen, and I just did not go back. I was like, no. And years later, me and my friend Chad are watching a video, and it's the top 10 most disturbing places on the dark web. He was really interested in the dark web at one point, and on the top 10 list, I think it was like number 7 was Candy Palace. There's some sick people on the internet. Now, albeit we're not now, that's not saying we're disgusting or anything like that. I mean, I'm a little overweight.
I'm kind of disgusting.
And Mike is a skinny rail. Yeah. He's a skinny anarchist. I mean, honestly, he looks like the prototypical hipster anarchist guy. Except he's not a communist.
My UPS guy told me I looked like the Unabomber.
Oh gosh,
he's a cool guy. My UPS driver, not the Unabomber. Clarification.
Okay. Ted. Okay, you actually, to me, you don't look like Ted Kaczynski. You don't look like Ted Kaczynski. You more along the lines look like a. I don't know. You look like that rogue Hebrew rabbi that's just like guarding. It's like guarding the last bastion of of Hebrewism, and you got like a shotgun on your back and all that. That's what I see.
What?
I see you're like the Hebrew Hammer to some degree. You're like shalom, motherfuckers. That's what I see.
Oh,
you're like the Hebrew Hammer, except
Hebrew Hammer. Why?
Except you're even more awkward. Well, I'm even more awkward myself. You know how awkward I am? I'm so awkward. There's just a picture of my face in the dictionary next to the word awkward. Did you know that if you look up the word dictionary in the dictionary, you know what it says?
This book.
It says you're an asshole. All right. So anyway, this is a thing we're doing. This is more Mr. Nightmare. This is 3 true Craigslist horror stories. So let's just dive right in. What do you say? Let's get all up ends in this. Here we go.
Number 3. I'm a 22-year-old girl. I was looking on Craigslist to buy a couch for my new apartment a month ago. I found something I thought seemed like a good deal. From the pictures, the couch seemed to be in great shape. The seller wanted to be contacted by email. His email was mexicanpoppy666@hotmail.com.
Well,
I felt that email was a bit off-putting, but I still went ahead and emailed the man my offer. He responded within 5 minutes, accepting the offer and asking for my address. I honestly felt uncomfortable with his asking. I did not want a stranger coming to my house. I suggested that I just come to his house to pick it up, but he continually insisted that he come to my house.
No.
Eventually I stopped responding, and a day later, he emailed me again, giving me his address. I didn't know if I should go at that point, but it seemed like a steal.
No.
Almost too good to be true.
It is.
According to his address, he didn't live too far. So I got in my van and drove over to the seller's house. I immediately noticed that the house was a bit smaller than all the other houses on the block. When I rang the bell, a middle-aged man wearing a baseball cap answered the door. He gave me a huge smile and invited me in. I was immediately feeling uneasy. He led me into his living room and I saw the couch.
Ever go.
Immediately, I saw scuff marks and small tears in the couch. It was not at all in the shape that it appeared in the ad. I commented on this, and he just smiled and offered to lower the price. I told him I'm not interested, and here's where things started getting creepy. As I was making my way out of the house, he put his hand on my shoulder and offered to give it to me for free if I was willing to, quote-unquote, give something to him. I let out a disgusted gasp and got back into my car. I didn't even look up out the window. I just drove away from there quickly. But it doesn't end there. That same night, I was laying in my bed watching TV when I thought I heard somebody stomping up the steps of my porch. I muted the TV and was able to clearly hear the sound of somebody fiddling with my front doorknob. I jumped out of my bed and tiptoed over to the front door to look through the peephole, but whoever it was already gone. And then, I thought I could hear the sound of the gate to the backyard opening and closing. That was when I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. Soon after, I heard the sound of somebody fiddling with the doorknob to the back door of the apartment. I yelled to whoever it was that the police were on their way, and after that, I heard the sound of the gate opening and closing again. They were gone. This was a month ago, and nothing has happened since, but I still can't sleep at night.
I wouldn't be able to either.
Sure, it was the man that was selling the couch. He must have followed me home. There was no way it was just a coincidence. I don't plan on using Craigslist anymore, and I'm still trying to find a new apartment.
Yikes.
Number 2. I was looking for a car to buy for my son for his 18th birthday. I was searching all the typical car websites, cars.com, eBay Motors. They were all overpriced as expected. Craigslist was the only place to find an actual deal. About a week into my search, I found an 03 Toyota Camry. It had 67,000 miles, no accidents, no damage, and good condition for only $3,500. This seemed like a steal for such a reliable car with such low mileage.
That's
The seller lived
Toyota.
about 10
Runs
miles
forever.
from me, which was a reasonable drive when looking for a car. I gave him a call to set up a time to come check it out. The man sounded normal on the phone. He assured me that there were absolutely no problems with the car. He introduced himself as Bob. I brought along $3,500 in cash, even though I planned on wiggling down the price as much as possible. I pulled up the dirt road to Bob's property about 15 minutes early. It was a tiny little house with a decent-sized property, only because it was a bit far from the nearest neighbors. The garage was open, so I walked over to see if anybody was inside, but except for an unusual amount of car parts, it was empty. The car was nowhere in sight. The only car on the property was an old pickup truck. I went over to the front door to check the house numbers. It was the right address. The doorbell button was missing, so I knocked on the front door. I knocked for exactly 5 minutes before deciding to give the man a call. So I dialed his number and I heard the sound of a cell phone ringing from inside the house. I was extremely confused at this point. Now I knew I had the right house. I didn't understand why, if he was home, why he wasn't answering. I decided I had to take a peek through one of the windows to see if anybody was inside. Peering through the glass, I couldn't really see much as it was pretty dark inside the house. I saw a very old-fashioned dining room set, but across from that, I saw somebody standing at the back door of the house, staring outside. I figured that must have been Bob, so I knocked on the window, but he didn't even move. There was no gate or anything to the backyard. It was just a wide open yard since this wasn't a rural area. I simply walked around the house to the backyard. I didn't understand how he couldn't hear me. When I got to the back door, I made a shocking realization. The figure standing by the door was a taxidermied human being. I ran straight back the way I came and back to my car. I looked up one last time before driving off. The blinds to the window I had peeked into had been shut, but I could see 2 of the blinds bent open. Somebody was at that window watching me. You can probably guess I had the gas pedal to the floor the whole way home.
Yeah.
The whole situation still makes no sense. All the car parts, the fact that there was no Toyota Camry, the taxidermied human being, the fact that there was no car there leads me to believe that whoever that man wasn't planning on selling me anything. And that also leads to the disturbing thought that I was very close to becoming a lifeless statue staring out that man's back door. Number 1. I was looking to buy the iPhone 5 about a year ago. I found a guy on Craigslist who was selling his for $200. He claimed it was in mint condition and that he wanted to upgrade to the 5C. I didn't know much about how to go about testing a phone to make sure everything works, so I brought my little brother along who knew a lot more than I did. We met halfway at a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot at like 10 o'clock at night. 2 large, intimidating guys stepped out of a black Honda Civic and walked over to us. One of the guys pulled out the phone and showed it to me. It didn't have a scratch on it. My brother took out my SIM card and popped it into this new phone. He did some testing and told me that it works. The guy then asked for $250, even though he originally asked for $200. I lied and told him I only brought $200, and he seemed a bit unhappy with this. I did have $250, but I didn't want to spend more than his original asking price.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of figured it was his way of making sure I didn't haggle down the price. I handed the guy the $200, and he and his buddy got back in their car. We got back into my car, and I tested out the new phone by calling my girlfriend. I sat testing things around for about 5 minutes. My brother commented on the fact that the 2 guys hadn't left yet either, but I didn't really care. I started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. My brother then commented that the 2 guys started their car just as I had. I didn't find it too weird. I drove down the turnpike and eventually stopped at a red light. That's when I noticed the black Honda Civic pull up right behind us in my rear view mirror. I found that a bit weird since I was sure they came from the opposite direction. I continued my drive home, but every single turn we made, they followed, and close on my tail too. My brother suggested I pull over, but there was no way I was going to do that. I knew those guys were looking for trouble. It got to the point where I was trying to lose them and started driving dangerously. If they needed something, they would call or at least honk their horn, but they were looking for some kind of trouble. I tried something risky to lose them. At an intersection, the light had just turned red. I floored it across the intersection before any of the cars would begin to pass. My brother shouted at me, calling me stupid and crazy, but it worked. They didn't follow. We got home after the extra long drive. My heart was still racing from the intensity of the situation. I was just happy I had a working phone for such a low cost. Later that night, I was playing around with the phone trying to set some things up before going to bed. My parents and brother were already asleep at this point, and just then, the sound of 2 car doors slamming shut outside interrupted me. I looked out my window, and I felt like my heart completely stopped. The black Honda Civic was parked across the street. I could only assume the 2 guys were already halfway to our front door. I immediately woke up my dad and explained everything as quickly as possible. He got up, grabbed a baseball bat, and crouched behind the front door. A loud knock came at the front door. My dad screamed at them to go away. One of the guys on the other side of the door claimed to have a gun and said that he would shoot the lock off of the door if he didn't open up. My dad told me to call Joe, our friend who lives 2 doors down who happens to be a police officer. I called Joe and he said he would be right over and to stay hidden. Here's the part that still scares me to this day. There was the sound of a silenced shot of a pistol. I peeked over and saw a bullet hole in the door, inches away from my dad's head. My dad ran away from the door and we all listened. We heard Joe outside yelling at them to drop their weapons. My dad went outside to help when they lowered their guns. Joe arrested the 2 assholes. I have to say, this was the scariest day of my life, but it was also the best I had ever felt in my entire life.
Wait, what? That's crazy.
Wow. It's risk addiction from what he sounds like, from his explanation.
Yeah, but it...
Whoa.
Was that just a jump scare?
Did you just get scared by a bike on a Craigslist ad? Did you? No, I got scared by that loud ass like. Whatever. Oh well.
Yeah, it sounds like It sounds like those guys were like just like a couple like wannabe mobsters. They just wanted to like.
They wanted to rob him.
I guess. But that's so weird that you would like specifically stalk someone and follow them home, rather than just like stake out a place, know when they leave, and then rob them. Like it sounds like they intentionally wanted to kill somebody. Like
Micah, the more effective criminal.
I'm just saying. I mean, that's all simple stuff. Like you watch like Law and Order or something. That's pretty easy. Well, that's what I'm saying though, is because that sounds like they were part of like some kind of like mafia or gang where they had some sort of like ritual killing inductions.
Oh, like blood in, blood out.
Right, something like that.
Yeah, I get that. For me, the problem with Craigslist, for instance, the ad to this apartment, I found on Craigslist. The ad to this townhouse, I found on Craigslist. I usually deal with people who, who want to. There was another house I tried to look at on Craigslist. I noticed that they only photographed one side of the living room. You know why that was? There was a gigantic hole
dead body
in the floor. No, there was a gigantic hole in the floor in the living room on one side, and they didn't repair it. I'm like, throw a piece of wood over it or something, man. Something like that. But honestly, man, it scares me sometimes what people are people are capable of.
Well, that's the thing is like, I mean, never go anywhere by yourself. Like that one poor girl, she never should have gone to that guy's house alone. I know that's not just because she was a girl. Like even if you're a guy, don't. Because crazy taxidermy guy. I hope he like called somebody because they need to go check that out.
That's just creepy. Like for instance, for one, I'd say get if you're not armed, especially because that's one thing about this video. I noticed that none of them like were carriers. Like I know I can understand the last one because he was a kid,
right?
He's a minor, but like the person wanting to find a car for their son,
especially driving a really long distance.
Yeah, you're in an unfamiliar place on someone else's property, and you don't get good vibes off that property. You didn't.
Well, and I don't understand why he was alone. Because if he was driving to get a car, how was he going to get it back?
Maybe he wanted to. Maybe he wanted to see. Maybe he wanted to go there, see if the car was legit, and then pay it, and then he was going to come back later with somebody else. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know.
That seems kind of strange to me.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't like when he submitted the story, he didn't say anything about like calling the authorities. After seeing like what he thought was a taxidermy person,
it may have just very well been like a very well done up dummy.
I mean, people have weird fetishes. I mean, they like made some sort of like creepy doll or something. I don't know.
Jesus, some things are just too much of it.
Yeah, if I was like driving a considerable distance, I'm gonna have my gun on me, and I'm probably not gonna go alone.
Yeah, you'd probably take Caleb or like Ben or
something.
Like
I mean, and honestly, like I'd probably have that person like wait in the car, so it's like nobody can just sneak up on them, you know.
And lock the doors too, because
you know,
next thing you know, door comes open, gun right there,
right.
Just like, hey buddy, get out of the car,
or
they don't even say anything, just blow your brains out right there. I mean, you gotta be careful out there. I mean. Whilst the world is a beautiful place and full of a lot of really good things, it's a savage world. I mean, that's one thing you can really get past. It is a savage world out there, and as much as we claim we're civilized and all this and all that, there's always the ones out there who are uncivilized and wish to do harm to others. I mean, there are monsters out there. They aren't Grimloblins or, hide-behinds or Slendermans. They're human beings just like you and me. And there's only one true proper way to deal with them. Either stay away from them, or if they try to harm you...
Chimpanzee.
just like rip their face off, bite off all their fingers, and rip their genitalia off. Jesus.
Just like a sling.
I was going to say,
slingshot
would you weaponize chimps if you had the ability to?
Oh, no.
Exactly.
I don't hate anybody that much. That's terrifying. I was just making a joke.
Oh, gosh.
Man.
Micah hates chimps. We get back to that again.
Vicious little monsters.
Shit. All right. Well, this was eye-opening to some degree and very horrifying. So
don't buy couches on Craigslist.
You want to hear a funny story?
Did you buy this couch on Craigslist?
Actually, it was Facebook yard sale.
Okay.
Which is kind of like Craigslist, but usually people are like real smart. They're like, well, this only has one or two pictures of it. This had a lot of pictures of it, and it like showed off where the parts were damaged. That one side over there with the little piece missing back there. But overall, Craigslist. I've had very few very few bad things happen. I haven't had anyone stalk me home or anything like that, but I did have one guy like haggle my dad, like try to sell my dad like a beat up old ass Honda Civic that had like water damage in the back of it, and like what he did was he used showroom floor pictures of this car, and then he put those online, and me and my dad drove all the way up to New Jersey to get it. We drove all the way up to New Jersey to get it. We get there, the stereo's missing. There's water damage in the back of it, and my dad wants to take it for a test drive, and on the test drive, it craps out. So, yeah, it some bad things have happened on Craigslist. So be wary. Be very wary. All right, that's going to do it. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm Nate.
Micah.
We will see you all later, everyone. Peace out.